welcome to another episode of Sum of Our Parts, the podcast where two friends talk about the movies that add up to make us who we are. I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Jim.
and this week, Jim picked our movie. So, Jim, tell us what you had us watch.
I picked something lighthearted and fun, and this movie never ceases to make me laugh. And it's Cat Ballou from 1965 with Lee Marvin and Jane Fonda. And I always like westerns. I always like Lee Marvin, and he was just so funny in this. And I still laugh every time I see his character on screen. So I just wanted something that was, like I said, it was a little more uplifting and just sort of just easy and fun to watch and no real deep meaning.
Yeah, it was a fun one.
You said you'd never heard of this movie, correct?
I was unaware that it existed. I had never
Oh,
heard of it in my life. So, this was brand new to me. I had like no idea what it was going to be. I Googled it and I was like, oh, okay, I know who Jane Fonda is. It appears to be a Western. And that's all I knew going in.
okay.
But it was fun. It was like a fun, silly movie. I liked the sort of like Greek chorus throughout.
Okay, I was going to ask you, did you like the interludes with the with
Yes.
Stubby and Nat King Cole?
Yes.
So,
I mean, I love Nat King Cole. As we discussed, if people listen to our Christmas episodes, my favorite Christmas song of all time is The Christmas Song, as performed by Nat King Cole. So, like, amazing voice. Just like, I like just hearing him
oh, I know.
sing, even if it's like Cat Ballou. So.
And one of my favorite singers of all time. So
Mhm.
yeah, definitely. So
Yeah, so that was a treat because I was like, I saw his name on the list of the cast, and I was like, oh, what is he doing in this movie? And then I was like, oh, he's uh, kind of the Greek chorus, like giving us kind of setting the scene
hmm
and
and
narrating a little bit.
I'm guessing you've never heard of Stubby K.
Well, actually, when I looked him
Oh,
up, he's
okay.
in, he plays Mr. Acme in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I actually rewatched very recently. So
Oh, I
I
forgot about
recognized
that
him.
because
So
I know
I
him from
didn't,
Guys and Dolls.
yeah, so I didn't know his name, but then when I saw that, I was like, oh, I know exactly who that is.
Oh,
So
okay. Well,
yeah,
good.
so I did know because he's the one who gets murdered in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, hence the framing. But yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I knew who because I was like, he looks kind of familiar, but
Uh-huh.
so I did know something about
Oh,
him.
no, that's okay. I was just curious because when I talk to people about the movie, sometimes they'll go, well, I'll say, and then there's, Nat King Cole and Stubby K, and they'll go, who? And it's like,
Yeah, yeah, I
but
didn't
he
know the
was,
name, but then when I like looked into it, I was like, oh, okay, I know who he
I think
is.
he did a lot of Broadway.
Hmm.
And he
Yeah,
was
I
a
was reading
talented
like
musician.
Broadway, vaudeville, like that kind of
hmm
stuff.
Yeah, came out of there. So, especially, plus who doesn't like the name Stubby? It's
I mean, that's like very like a vaudeville kind of name, right?
exactly. So well, good. What did it? But you enjoyed the movie. You didn't disappoint as far as being lighthearted and a little off the beaten path for a
Yeah, no,
Western.
I think it was fun, a little silly. I think, there are things that feel outdated about it,
Mhm. Yeah.
but, I that's how things work, right? Like it's made in 1965, like my mother was born in 1965. So like
Ooh, okay.
it's been some time. So tell me about like when you first watched this movie.
My dad took me to go see this movie when I was a kid. So I was
Okay.
8 years old when this came out. And it
Mhm.
wasn't, it was, I don't even know if it had a rating, but I remember because he liked Lee Marvin, and it was one of those movies when it came out, it was like something you could take the kids to. So I
Mhm.
know and my dad would take us to movies. My mom never really cared to go to the movies very much, but dad did. So yeah, I remember
Yeah.
seeing it on the big screen. And one of the things that I remember about it as a child, and I remember at the very beginning of the movie when they have the opening sequence and they have the lady,
Like
that
the Columbia Pictures
Columbia
lady
Pictures, and then she
changes.
turns into Cat Ballou cartoon. It was like a
Yes.
cartoon
Bang,
at
bang,
first,
bang.
and I thought it was going to be a cartoon. So,
Mm.
when I first, but it wasn't. But it was a western, and then of course, as growing up in the 50s and the late 50s and 60s, TV westerns were everywhere, so we've
Mm-hmm.
always liked westerns. So, but I,
Yeah.
ever since then, I just, like I said, it just always makes me laugh. So there's a couple
Mm-hmm.
of scenes where I still bust out laughing as we talk about the movie.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about those. So
Excellent. Yeah. I will say I've like barely, and maybe it's like the time I grew up, but like I feel like I've barely seen any Westerns. Like it just, there just like weren't any really
yeah.
around at the time. And I think like, you know, I grew up also watching movies with my dad. So like if there were things that my dad wasn't like a huge fan of, then I just didn't watch them. And like I guess my dad was not a huge fan of Westerns. So like we
Oh,
just
okay.
didn't really
Yeah.
watch Westerns. Like I think the closest thing to a Western that I ever watched was, and you and I have talked about this and we'll probably revisit it on the podcast, was like Zorro.
You watched the original,
The
the
original like 1950s Zorro.
yeah,
Yeah. So
from Disney.
yeah, so people, if you in the 90s, if you stayed up late like I did and
Hmm.
kept the TV on Disney, you would eventually see the 1950s Zorro played late at night. So
With
that's where I got all my.
Guy Williams, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I just, like I said,
Yeah.
I remember like the images of it. I don't like know that I've followed much, but I developed a habit of drawing Z's on the walls in my house that my mom was not fond of.
You
So
didn't do it with a sword, did you?
no, I did it with pencil, and then she gave me a sword so that I could kind of do it in the carpet. You know how you can kind of like write in the carpet? So
Oh, okay.
she gave me like a plastic sword so I could just do it in the carpet
Oh,
and
okay.
stop drawing on her walls. So
Uh, Gotcha. Did well after you started drawing on the walls, did you have to clean the walls off, or did she clean?
I know there were at least sometimes I recall cleaning the walls. I don't know if I cleaned all of them, but I definitely did sometimes.
Oh, okay. So
So
you still have the plastic sword?
no, 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 that's long gone.
Oh, that'd have been cool though if it was a Zorro sword.
I know. It
Just
would be
saying.
cool. Maybe
Yeah.
one day I'll dress as like Zorro for Halloween. Be like a lady Zorro.
If you dress as Zorro, I could dress as the Mexican soldier.
Oh
I can't
yeah.
remember his name. So, the one that he always, was making a fool out of.
Yeah, the with the big belly.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. I can do that. So,
Perfect. Perfect.
okay.
Um
Sneak peek for all you fans that are waiting for our next Halloween drop. So,
yeah. So, well, this movie was directed by Elliot Silverstein, who also directed other films later, like The Happening, A Man Called Horse, Nightmare Honeymoon, The Car. He did some television directing too, including some episodes of The Twilight Zone, for example. It was based on a novel from 1956 called The Ballad of Cat Ballou by Roy Chancellor. And the screenplay was written by Walter Newman and Frank Pearson. So Walter Newman also wrote some other Academy Award nominated movies like Ace in the Hole, Blood Brothers. He wrote for radio. Also, he wrote the first broadcast episode of Gunsmoke.
oh,
And he did work on a lot of other movies as well.
okay.
Frank Pearson wrote or co-wrote on a bunch of big movies, including Cool Hand Luke, Dog Day Afternoon, and the 1976 version of A Star Is Born.
When you listed all those things, there's nothing that really. This sounds like this was probably really the only comedy that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these people ever put their hands on. And like I said, I think it's a good movie. Maybe there's some people that would disagree, but
Yeah.
it sounds like they all did like a lot more dramatic things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean they also were nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars that year.
Oh,
So
okay.
this movie was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, and that was one of them. So Frank Pearson also wrote Presumed Innocent, the movie Presumed Innocent.
Oh, oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
See, those are all kind of
another
like heavy
dramatic
movie.
example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I also need people to know, and maybe you'll see this if I can find this image to download to make when I share this episode on social media. But The A in Cat Ballou on the poster is a woman from behind with her legs like the arms of an A, like bent over, like looking through her legs.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then there's a big version of that on the poster as well. So just so everybody knows.
Are you are,
Um,
are you saying that it might be politically incorrect in this day and age?
Perhaps. Well, there's a few things on the list, so we'll get there.
Okay.
It's that way out whopper of a funny western, a shebang to end all shebangs. Cat Ballou is all ball.
Is
Okay.
all ball?
Yeah, that's what it says on the poster.
Oh,
I don't even know what that means.
I don't
But
either.
anyways,
Now I'm beginning to rethink why my dad took us to go see this movie. I think
right?
maybe it was because of Jane Fonda. It had nothing to do with Lee Marvin.
Could have been, could have
Yeah.
been. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I think we'll kind of get to some of the other less well-aged
the
bits of
uh
it
the sketchy parts.
as we move through the movie. So shall
Okay.
we get into it?
Sure. Open
So,
us up as I would say. So,
well, as you mentioned, it's a Columbia Pictures film, which I think people can recognize like the lady like on the pedestal. And that turns into a cartoon of Cat Ballou. Cat Ballou is the name of Jane Fonda's character. That's what I didn't know that when hadn't heard of it. I was like, what does that mean?
oh,
But her
right,
name is
yeah.
Catherine Ballou, and she eventually goes by Cat Ballou. So, and then we meet our kind of Greek chorus, which is, as we were talking about, Nat King Cole and Stubby K singing this song, The Ballad of Cat Ballou.
Cat
So
Ballou.
where we start is she is about we're in Wolf City, Wyoming in 1894, and she has been sentenced to be hanged because she killed a man. So that they sort of set the stage. We don't see her, but we see the people around. The townspeople are not supportive of her at all.
Yeah, it seems like they're this is a happy occasion for them.
Yeah,
Uh
they're happy to see her go. There's like a mob of women who are like basically like she's some like floozy kind of like she's a sort of loose woman, right? She's like not a good role model for women. So they're like, get rid of her.
right. Let her hang, let her go.
Yes. And again, just a reminder, as we were just talking about Stubby K and Nat King Cole. So Stubby K, he was in like Guys and Dolls, Sweet Charity that Bob Fosse did, and he's Mr. Acme in Roger Rabbit, which is what I know him best from, but a lot of like Broadway, vaudeville, musical kind of performances. Nat King Cole, he's been in a lot of films, but mostly as himself because if somehow you have not heard of him, was a famous singer. He died, I guess, not long after this movie came out because he died
He
in
actually died
1965.
before the movie came out,
Okay.
before it was released. But yeah,
Okay.
so because yeah, unfortunately, died of cancer.
Yes, he was a heavy smoker and had lung cancer. Songs you might know him from: the Christmas song, the best version, the Love song, like L is for the way you look at me, Unforgettable, which he also sang in duet with his daughter, Natalie Cole. Like she recorded a sort of duet with him. So yeah, also
Mo-
you might know of his daughter, Natalie Cole, who
who
has
also
also since passed
passed. Yeah,
about 10 years ago.
what much too young. So
Yes. So, but yeah, Nat King Cole, listen to his music. Very good, amazing voice. Lovely to hear. Um,
I'll add one more song, my favorite by
mhm.
him, Mona Lisa.
Okay. Mm.
So yeah,
But yeah, he sounds great on these little banjo ditties. Him and Stubby K are there. They're both playing a banjo and wearing a guitar on their back in their like 1890s clothes, just singing to make sure that we're aware of what's going on. So then it kind of takes us back to the beginning of the series of events that gets us there. And Catherine Ballou, who's played by Jane Fonda, is on a train to go back home to. So she's from Wolf City, Wyoming. She's on the train to come home after she's been to finishing school. She's been trained to be a teacher. Well, I guess before we say that, Jane Fonda, I think she's another person that like everyone has heard of in some way, like whether it's for like activism, whether it's for workout videos, whether it's for her acting career, right? Like I think most recently she's in the Grace and Frankie, like 80 for
Mhm.
Brady, like she's in all these like old lady movies, Monster in Law, but she's been in a ton of other things, right? Like Barbarella, Clute, 9 to 5, on Golden Pond. They shoot horses, don't they? Those are some of her. I included some of her Oscar winning or nominated performances, but like she's been in a ton of movies. Also, one of the better Nepo babies.
Oh yeah, yeah. Her and Peter. So,
Yeah. She has a brother, Peter Fonda, their father, Henry Fonda. They're in on Golden Pond together. There's also an interesting tidbit related to her activism that I read about this movie that I'll revisit towards the end when we get
oh,
there. But
okay.
yeah, because she, if you don't know, she went to Vietnam. She went to Hanoi and in like 1972, one.
I yeah, right around there. Yeah.
People were not happy.
Well,
Or
yeah, and then she posed for, well, they took photographs and
yes,
with the
yes.
North Vietnamese,
Hmm.
with some North Vietnamese
Yes, which
soldiers.
is who we were fighting against. So people were not happy. They called her like Hanoi Jane and all this stuff.
Yeah. So,
So, anyways, you know of Jane Fonda one way or another. All that to say. So, she's in her little compartment on the train, her little booth, and she ends up with this drunk priest. And she's reading Tennyson and he's reading about this like gunslinger named Kid Shalene. Basically, the guy, surprise, not a real priest. His name is Jed, and he is on the train to free his nephew, Clay Boone, who's currently like being taken somewhere by like a sheriff. He's handcuffed and being taken in. Um, so he frees him, and they beat him up and put the cuffs on the sheriff, and they're going to flee the train, but they forget something,
well,
right?
he left the gun with the sheriff, and he says, "Oh, he's going to shoot himself free and
Oh
get
yeah.
catch us before we get off the train." So he tries to go back to get his gun or something, and he hears the sheriff shoot, and he
Hmm.
knows now he's free, so he runs and then he hides.
Yes. So Clay ends up hiding with Kat in her compartment again. And at this point also she's like half dressed.
Well, I got the idea. Hopefully, she was getting ready to go to sleep.
Yeah,
So,
it seemed that way because she was like kind of like
but she did kind of have. I mean, for I would have thought that was more would be more covered up. But
yeah.
we're
She
in
had basically like
1965.
an undershirt on and like her skirt instead of like the she took off like the jacket thing,
Yeah.
blouse. So he's like hiding in there and then the conductor, the like ticket taker guy and the sheriff come by and they're like, "Ma'am," and she just kind of pokes her little head out because it's like covered with curtains, so she just pokes her little head out and they're like, "Have you seen these guys?" And she's like, "Oh no, I haven't." Clay is getting a little fresh, as one might say, because as we said, she's half dressed, particularly for the time, and
Hmm.
he is very close to her. He's all up in her business and trying to hit on her, and he's like pretending like he's not trying to hit on her, and then he basically kisses her and escapes out the window. So when Kat arrives home to Wolf City, she goes to her father's ranch and sees that it's things are not looking great there.
It's really run down and
Hmm.
it's neglected looking.
Yeah, he used to have all these horses. They're not there. Like his fields are like empty, his pastures.
The house looks like crap.
Yeah,
Crap.
she's like, it
It's
hasn't been repainted or anything. Like it's looking very worse for the wear. He has hired a farmhand named Jackson Two Bears, who he heard from some former congressman that Native Americans are the original Hebrews.
The lost tribe of Israel.
Yes. So he keeps saying, first of all, he this is not Hebrew, because in Hebrew you say shalom. He's speaking Arabic to him because he's saying assalamu alaikum, which is what that's Arabic. Or like Muslim people say that. So he's way off. And the guy Jackson is like, I'm not
I'm
Jew
not
like Hebrew,
Jewish.
Jewish, like none of it. And he's like, well, a congressman said it,
And
which
then I like how he talked. He said he got what the storekeeper who was Jewish come over and talk Hebrew to him for 10 minutes, and Jackson pretended like he didn't understand a word of what he was saying.
and Jackson's like, no, I just didn't understand. Clearly, Mr. Frankie Ballou has not learned that Congress people are not reliable sources of information, as we now know.
How can you say that?
I think these days, if someone said, I heard this from a former congressman, I would be like, oh, so then I know it's a lie. I know it's made up.
Or just, I was going to say, or just pure fabrication.
Yeah,
So,
they pulled that out of somewhere. But
mm,
brief pause here. So, this is one area that I'm also going to take issue with because Mr. Jackson Two Bears is played by a gentleman named Tom Nardini, who is Italian and appears to have been painted brown for this movie. Tom Nardini also in things like Cowboy in Africa, which was a TV show, I think, The Edge of Night, TJ Hooker. Um,
really?
yeah, I think, but it looked like it was a movie. Was there a movie of TJ Hooker also?
I'd remember the TV show, but I don't remember there being a movie, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I don't know. Frankie Blue is played by John Marley, who was also in Faces, Love Story, and he's in The Godfather. You might remember him as the guy who gets the horse head in his bed. That's the same actor.
Exactly. So,
Stay tuned for when we talk about The Godfather. But in any case, Kat is concerned, obviously, seeing the state of the farm, and her dad's like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, don't worry about it, which is like very, I feel like very like a parent thing to do. And so when he walks away, she's like, Jackson, tell me what's really going on. And he says that Frankie has rubbed people in town the wrong way. So essentially, they're trying to get rid of him. They want to take over the land. There's a development corporation run out of town. The Wolf City Development Corporation wants to take over the
but,
ranch.
and because they want his water rights.
Mm-hmm.
Evidently, he has the water, for that
Mm-hmm.
they need to do, uh, develop their businesses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he won't sell naturally because he's a stubborn old guy
Yeah.
until he gets a horse's head put in his bed.
Yeah. Well, they should have figured that out. The West Wolf City Development Corporation should have
Right.
tried that.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, they're just walking around, and then boom, there's a big scary man with like a metal thing on his nose and a shotgun. And he's like, I'm looking for Mr. Frankie Blue. And he won't say who he is. But Jackson says he is a hired killer named Strawn,
Tim Strawn.
Tim Strawn. And he wears a thing on his nose because he like got it bit off in like a fight over a poker game or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's gruesome.
I do like Frankie Ballou's comment was he said, if I was going to be afraid of anybody, I'd be afraid of the man that bit his nose off, not of him.
Fair.
Fair,
Fair.
right? Because, that guy bit his nose off. So,
Yeah. So they go to town to like a dance, I guess, like some sort of get
like a
together.
square dance, it looks like,
Yeah.
or barn dance, or
Hmm. And Kat is talking to the sheriff because she's like, what is being done to help my father? And he's like, oh, you silly little dumb woman. Go do your woman things.
the classic line, don't worry your pretty little head.
Blech.
I was
Um,
hoping to get that reaction out of you. So
yeah.
that's the reason I.
So if you couldn't tell by the noise, I was going bleh.
Hmm. So
So imagine me
Lindsay was
doing a barf
reacting
face.
properly in our time and day of when how he was treating Cat.
Yeah. So she's talking to Jackson about what to do, and he says they kind of need like a hired gun to like fight him, and he suggests writing a letter to Kid Shalene, who is, the subject of lore, these books, but also like a real person. He says, if you write a letter, I'll like have it sent to him. And then who should show up at the dance? In the middle of dancing, right? She just gets spun into them. But Clay from the train and Uncle Jed, they are on the run. Both of them have prices on their heads because they obviously are wanted criminals,
Outlaws.
outlaws, as they say, yes. But they could be of use to Cat because they have guns. So Kat's like, well, she's like, come to my place tonight. And Clay's, of course, like, oh,
Mm, oh,
not like that, not like that. Then some mayhem is about to get started because some guys are messing with Jackson because he's Native American. They're like, oh, this Injun, what are you doing here? And he's like, they're hostile out there because of like Custer and all of that. And so he's like, it's gonna be Custer's last stand all over again, but with me in the middle. And then the fight begins. And it's just like it starts with just him and these people, but then the whole place. There's fighting happening all over the place. Men, women, children. The children are
everybody.
watching, but like
Well,
everybody's happening. Jackson like accidentally scalps someone.
I think it was a toupee.
It was a toupee, but there is
Yeah,
blood on. Well, it's like I guess the guy got injured and he took his toupee because there was
toupee.
blood.
Yeah, a little bit, and
But then
then
he starts like chanting like he did scalp someone.
mhm.
This is also where I'm like, okay, this is we're getting a little iffy because then him and Jane Fonda are both doing the like,
Yeah, the Indian war cry thing.
yeah, and people, I think you know what I'm talking about, where you like, put your hand over your mouth,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh,
At least they didn't do the tomahawk chop.
yeah, yeah, gotta go to gotta go to
Uh,
Atlanta Braves games
Atlanta,
and
right? Got to go to
Kansas
Atlanta
City Chiefs games for that too. So the few sports teams, I guess, still hanging on.
or the
Seminoles, Florida State.
Florida, yeah, Florida Seminoles.
Then there's like some lady is like beating up a guy like at Frankie's direction. He's like, "Get him for me. Get him on the right, and then a left, and then a right."
Yeah, I think Frankie's kind of sweet on her because
Yeah.
he calls her his little turtle dove, and
Mm-hmm.
she's pretty robust. I
I was
mean,
gonna say nothing little about that lady.
she's bigger than Frankie. Although
Sure is.
Frankie's not a big guy, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, and she's not a slight woman, I would
No,
say.
that's a good way to put it. So
So in any case, they all make it out of there alive, and Clay and Jed come home with Kat and Frankie and Jackson, and they are meant to sleep in the barn. But when Kat gets ready for bed, Clay is in her bed. And she tries to kick him out, but she doesn't want him to like leave. And she talks to him about her concerns, right? People in town are trying to drive my father off his land. And Clay's like, "Okay, well you should leave then. You
yeah,
should leave."
you should go. Yeah, it's dangerous. So
Yeah. Which she doesn't want to, but then he says hire a gunman. So this is when she's like, "Okay, I will write a letter to Kid Shalou. I mean Kid
Shalene.
Shalene. Sorry. I'm
No, that's okay.
I'm
Yeah,
putting their names together because Clay and Jed, like they have guns, but they've never shot at anyone.
I
But
don't
they'll
think they're the
stay.
hardened criminal type. They don't.
No, they seem more into like petty crime, like
Mm,
they'll steal some wallets kind of thing.
right, or
Um,
rustle a few cows.
yeah, exactly. Low level property crimes, no violent crimes for them.
Right.
So she writes to Kid Shalene, and they are waiting in town for his like carriage to arrive, and out steps this like big man all in black, and it's like, oh great, like this guy's gonna take care of us. But oh wait, that's not him. That's just a guy because his wife and kids like run up to him.
I know, but when you first see him, you think because he's got like the two guns and he's got the
Mm-hmm.
long coat, he looks like the gunfighter, and then yeah, then he's got a family, and it's
Yeah,
like,
so it's like, oh, okay, it's not
yeah,
him.
it's not him. And the
Then,
Greek chorus even sings about, like he's wild as a cougar and thinking this is going to be kid, but it's not. Sorry.
yeah.
So, yeah, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. And then we meet the real kid Shalene, who is passed out in the back of this carriage and basically gets like rolled off onto the ground.
He's out like a light.
Yeah. So they have to kind of pick him up and shuffle him over to their little carriage to take him home to the farm or the ranch. And they try to get him to shoot because he's right, he's this famous gunslinger. And he's this man's barely upright.
He's he's having a rough time. He's
He is three sheets to the wind, as one might say. And then he asks for more liquor, a little more liquor to steady his hand. So they give it to him, and suddenly he's an ace.
starts
He's
talking.
Yeah, he's just picking off every like little bottle that's like in various places. Bang, 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 bang. Frankie not like pleased with him being there. Mr. Ballou is like, why is this man here?
Right. I don't need a drunken gunfighter and a couple of idiots, I think is how he refers to Clay and Jed.
Yeah, which like again, fair.
They're not bringing a whole lot to the table.
Definitely not. Definitely not. So they seem like fun guys, not like helpful when someone's trying to take your land.
Especially Jed. Jed seems like the a real nice, he's not making passes at Cat or anything
Hmm.
like that. He's sort of looking out for his nephew. But
Yeah. He's just kind of silly and goofy.
yeah, and played by Dwayne Hickman, by the way. So I don't know.
Oh,
He
yes.
was like a teenage heartthrob, I guess you would call it back in the
Yes.
day.
Because he had a brother, Daryl, was his name Daryl Hickman?
Daryl.
That was also, so they were like in a lot of things together. So yeah, we can get to that, I guess. So yeah, Jed's played by Dwayne Hickman. He was on the Bob Cummings show, The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. Heaven only knows. So I think it seems like he did a lot of like small parts in a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
Clay Boone is played by Michael Callan. He originated the role of Riff in West Side Story on Broadway. He was in the Interns, Gidget Goes Hawaiian. I also saw that he was in the movie Stuck on You from like the 2000s with Matt Damon and Greg Kinnear.
I like
I
that
don't know
movie.
like what the part he played was. It was named Fox Prexy. I don't know like who I don't remember who that was in the movie, but he was in that movie.
I do like that movie, but I don't remember him being in it, but I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I guess probably a small part, but and then lastly, both Shalene and Strawn are played by the same actor, Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin won an Oscar, Best Actor for this movie for the dual roles. He was, I think, as we mentioned before, but was sort of playing against type in this movie because he's kind of funny and goofy, whereas he was usually kind of like a heavy, like a sort of serious, like scary guy or like an anti-hero and a lot of other things. So he was in things like M Squad, The Killers, The Professionals, The Dirty Dozen,
Big Red One, he was in.
Gorky Park, The Delta Force,
Mhm.
Paint Your Wagon.
With Clint Eastwood. Both of them sang.
Mm. Oh gosh,
That we might get to that. So just saying.
that is interesting.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that's the cast. So, anyways, Jackson tells Kid Shalene just to catch him up that the gunman that's after Frankie is Strawn, and you can tell that Kid Shalene like he that's a familiar name to him.
He's sort of taken aback a little bit, I
Yeah.
think, because he says, "How many in the opposition?" One, but it's
Hmm.
Tim Strong, silver
Yeah.
nose and all.
Yes. So, And also just to paint the picture a little bit, this man is a mess. He's got the like the sort of onesie long john situation on, but he's got clothes on over it, but his pants are down.
They're like ripped. Well, he ripped him when he
Yeah.
was trying to draw the gun from his pants,
Yeah. So they're like around his knees ish. He's dirty.
unshaven.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Lee Marvin doesn't have like hugely open eyes to begin with, but it looks like his eyes are barely open. And it's like, how could you see to shoot?
well,
Your
he
eyes are
does.
closed.
He is like pretty squinty. So,
Yeah. But, Kat just wants all these people to protect her father. Her father wants to be left alone. And Kat kind of sends the other men to like go outside with her father to like do the chores around the ranch. And when he's kind of yelling at them to leave him alone, Strawn has like snuck up and shot him, basically. So he gets shot like while he's standing there talking to them. So I get fat lot of good they did, I guess.
exactly. Yeah, three of them around him, and then and he shot right in the middle of them. So
And they like never they don't like do anything. It's like they all kind of act like they're gonna go for their guns, but then they like don't. And Kat is like devastated, like screaming. And she immediately hops on a horse because Strawn's on a horse. She hops on a horse and pursues him. And she she takes one of their guns though. And she tries to shoot him, but the other guys stop her. And she says to him that he will never make her cry. And then Nat King Cole sings a little song about that.
yeah, as only Nat can or
Yes.
could. And then all
Mhm.
the townspeople that with the sheriff, they all lie. They said, "Oh no, Tim Strawn's been here on this porch the whole time. He never left here."
Mm-hmm.
So they even
Even though,
lie.
like, yeah, they
Yeah, she
saw
knew it
him.
was he.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. But they're all covering for him. So
yeah, yeah. So it's a conspiracy, is what's happening. So then it's, they're getting close to like when her father's going to be buried. He's in the casket and he's smiling. The Undertaker or whatever made him smile, and she doesn't like that because she's like, he never smiled like this. Why you have him smiling like that?
well, yeah, she comes home and then he's already laid out and everything, and they
Yeah.
it was the Wolf City, the town of Wolf City
Hmm.
provided for that service.
Yeah, and here they're gonna bury him like behind the barn or something, and then she needs to go because
Right,
the Wolf
they're
City Development Corporation is taking over.
taking over the ranch. So
Yeah, so she's gonna. The plan is that Clay and Jet are gonna go to this like place saloon, I guess, called Hole in the Wall, which is for outlaws, and she's gonna go with them. Kid Shalene walks in and he's like, "I'm ready to protect Frankie
Frank,
Ballou," and they're like, "You're a little late, man." He's very confused about what's happening because then he sees lit candles and he sings happy birthday to Frank and then blows out the lit candles, which are obviously lit for a funeral reason and not a birthday reason.
well, at least his heart was in the right place. He was
Yeah,
trying to bring a little joy maybe into the lives of Frankie and Kat. So
indeed.
it
So,
was a funny scene. So this is one of the scenes I alluded to that I start laughing right when he starts singing "Happy Birthday."
yeah, that part was funny. It was funny. Even though I was like, oh no. But it was funny because I didn't expect it.
Well, I know again. To me, it was like just it was like just he just burst out. Can't you see what's going on? Oh, and it's like, oh, happy birthday to you.
And then there's all the
And
candles.
especially a gunfighter singing happy birthday. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
A drunk old gunfighter.
uh-huh.
Well, they all go to Hole in the Wall, and it is being run by the infamous. The bar is being run by the infamous Butch Cassidy of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, as you might have heard of him. So Butch Cassidy in this context is played by Arthur Honeycutt, who is in things like The Big Sky, um, and a bunch of
Oh gosh, he's
classic
been in
westerns. Sugarfoot, stuff like that. In Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, this character is played by Paul Newman. But in any case, he was a real like
Outlaw.
outlaw gunslinger. But he knows the kid Shalene, and he also knows that kid Shalene's there to drink and maybe not pay him. He's like, "You want to hold on to my guns?" Like,
Yeah, yeah. Until I get some money,
mm-hmm.
and Cassidy, those ain't your guns, and and you don't have any money, and
Yeah. So he knows that he knows his game. He knows his game. So meanwhile, the rest of the group, so it's Jackson, Clay, and Jed trying to figure out how to make money, and they're talking about like wrestling to make money.
Mhm. I guess they've done it before. It seems like because
It seemed that way.
they knew somebody that would take the cattle once they got them, and they
Hmm.
would butcher them and stuff. And
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, they're talking about wrestling cattle, and but Kat is reading the newspaper, and she has another idea that could be both lucrative and revenge. So there's a train coming in with the payroll for the Wolf City Development Corporation, and she wants to rob the train. And they're like, "No,
we're we're not train robbers.
we're not train robbers. No, like we're gonna get killed. Like that's not happening." And she's like, "Come on." She like storms out and basically has a temper tantrum. She's like, "You guys say you want to take care of me, and the first time I ask you to do one little thing for me, like rob a train, you can't even do that."
By
And
the way,
she's
for
like,
those of you who haven't seen the movie, that's a pretty good impression of Jane Fonda doing that little speech. So
"Thank you."
just
Then she's like throwing rocks at them. She's like, "You're a drunk and an Indian and a sex fiend and an uncle." That part made me laugh because I was like,
yeah, I
she had
know. It's
nothing.
like
Jed's fine. Jed didn't really do anything wrong. He's just someone's uncle.
he's an uncle. Yeah, he's not even.
An
Yeah,
uncle.
yeah. Like I said, he's kind of harmless. So
Yeah. But they relent and they're like, fine, okay. And Kid Shalene, obviously, he's a legendary outlaw, so he has robbed a train before. So they decide they're gonna use a plan he's used before. So basically they all kind of have some different posts. So Jed is on the train. He's posing as a passenger. Kat is posing as a widow, like crying over her husband's casket. Spoiler alert, Clay is in the casket.
right.
And then Jackson and the kid Shalene are on horseback, like kind of outside waiting for the train. The first part of the plan, Jed stops the train. So he pulls like the emergency brake and stops this train car that they know the money is in. It's very funny because there's a guy in a bathtub who we later learn is this Sir Harry Percival. So he's like in charge of all of this, but we don't necessarily know that now. But we just know that he's a guy with a British accent in a bathtub, and when the train stops, he is being like sloshed all around, like all the water sloshes out of his bathtub, but he's very upset. Clay is in the casket. She's like, "Oh," he's like, "Let me out," because stuff starts falling on top of the casket. He's like, "Let me out of here." Like, there's a guy that works on the train in there with Jane Fonda, and he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, I guess he's alive." So
Yeah, he's
then,
the male guard or whatever. So
yeah.
yeah,
There's also like some chickens back there. There's a lot going on
yeah.
in that
There's a
car. That's
hey,
like the
that's
miscellaneous like room.
well, it is the baggage car. So I'm guessing
Yeah.
there's if you have baggage, that's
You
where it
got you
goes.
got animals, you got dead bodies.
I know
Um,
widows. Uh,
we'll take whatever. So she opens it up and Clay pops out and holds the guy at gunpoint. Shalene and Jackson get on. What's funny is the guy that was in the bath comes out in a towel and kind of confronts the kid Shalene. He's like, "What is going on here?" And he's like, "This is a train robbery." And he's like, "Well, get on with it. I'm trying to take my bath." And then the kid Shalene takes his towel off. And he's like, "Oh," and kind of scurries back to where he was. The guy will not open the safe for Kat and Clay, even though he's being held at gunpoint.
mhm.
He's like, "You're not going to kill me." And then Kid Shalene is over there and he's like, "What's the holdup?" And he's like, "He won't open it." So he he shoots the guy's hat off his head, and then he is much more willing to give the code to the safe.
I was going to say he promptly comes out with a combination: seven
Yes.
left, six right, and 22 to the left.
Yes. And actually there's a lot more money than they thought because they thought there would be like $2,000 and there's like $50,000 here.
There's a hefty amount of greenbacks in that thing.
Yes. So they get off the train. Kat is like so excited. I guess that's what happens when you complete like your first robbery. It's probably a thrill.
Probably,
And
yeah.
you know,
Especially
they
if you
got
get $50,000 back in those days, it'd probably be like,
millions. Maybe like a million
yeah, probably, yeah,
for
probably.
1894, yeah. And also it's a little revenge for her.
Right, because it's Wolf City's development's payroll or whatever for
Yeah.
whatever they're doing. So, which seems to me if they had $50,000, you'd guard it a lot better than just putting it into a safe. But I don't
Right,
know.
with the one guy and the chickens.
Maybe they were killer chickens. I don't know.
Who knows? They were like roosters, like cockfighting roosters.
There you go.
So, in any case, they're gonna go back to hole in the wall, but the Shalene says they need to go kind of sort of one by one to avoid being tracked, right? They kind of go single file. So
Mhm.
there's not like tracks for people to follow. So Cat takes off and then, they all go one by one. And of course, Shalene is last and he's drunk and starts kind of falling over, but then the horse starts galloping and he's like hanging off. And Jackson's kind of trying to stay with him to like get him together, but then they start being chased, they're being pursued by presumably the authorities.
Oh yeah,
So
they got a posse together. Yeah,
yeah.
so
So
uh,
it's kind of a comical scene of like them just sort of they're like going left and then like this mob is after them and then they go right and then the mob is after them. He's still like hanging off the horse. Like he's not on the horse.
and the it's being played at like a little faster speed, and the music is like
Right. It's like it's not like the Benny Hill music, but like
it's
it's like that like it's that kind of
and and
music.
and the Greek chorus, the sounders or the
Yes.
shouters are singing about and round they go, and it's
Yes.
like um,
So they do finally. Shalene and Jackson actually end up getting back to Hole in the Wall first somehow.
go figure.
Somehow. Then the others arrive and they have all the money and it's funny. Shalene is now like very protective of Kat,
Mhm.
so he does it. He yells at Clay for like being too like handsy with her.
And
Um,
Jed defends him though. Jed says, "Oh
yeah,
no," he goes, "I was right with him," and he goes, "Nothing went on." He was
yeah, because
making
he's
sure.
basically saying like, "Oh, why did you take so long? What were you doing with her?" And
Yeah,
Jed's like, "No, like it's all good." At this moment, he wasn't doing anything. Um, Kat is like pumped and she wants to actually keep doing this. She's like, we could wipe out Wolf City if we keep like robbing them like this.
right,
But then Cassidy kind of hears what they're doing, and it turns out that sort of there's an agreement between Wolf City and Hole in the Wall. So like, we don't mess with you, you leave us alone.
right,
So he's like, I can't support doing anything against Wolf City because we have this agreement. So he kind of kicks them out. Kat's upset and Clay goes after her and he's saying, he wants to leave and go to St. Louis and he wants her to come with him. And she doesn't want to do that. And he says she's going to get herself killed. And then Jackson comes to talk to her. I don't really remember what he said. He said something about being in love.
he supposedly it's some wise saying that
Oh,
when the Great Spirit wants to drive men crazy, he makes them fall in love.
mm. So I
So
guess the implication being that Clay is in love with her.
right,
Um, but then Tim Strawn shows up and threatens Kat, and she
mm,
screams, and all the other guys come running. And obviously, she's shaken up because this man killed her father, and he's like a big guy, and she's a smaller woman. And Shalene Kid Shalene's like, you know what? This is my time to step up. So he asks Jackson to get him some, you know, clothes and shells and all this stuff. So he's gonna get ready and go kill Strawn. So we get a little like training montage
This is another part that just kills me. Like him trying to do the sit-ups,
in his
and
like
it,
cowboy boots.
yeah, and Jackson giving him a massage or a rub down, doing the
Yes.
the the little choppy thing.
They're doing drills. They're doing like the slap, like the hand slap game for like
Yeah, except kid's
reaction
got a
time.
gun, which I don't know
Yeah.
if I'd want to do that.
No.
Hopefully, it's not loaded.
Yeah. Then he's practicing shooting and then he's stopping drinking.
Yeah, he says because he misses, and Jackson says, "You want to drink?" He goes, "No booze, no
Hmm.
booze."
Then he bathes. He looks a lot cleaner. He shaves
Shaves, yeah,
and he puts on fresh clothes. Which first of all, he puts on a fresh set of his like long underwear. Not that dirty red pair he was wearing
yeah.
before. He's got like nice fresh white ones. But then he puts on like I don't know if this was a comic thing or if this is like a wardrobe like a real thing, but he puts on like a girdle, like a
A
corset.
corset, yeah. No, that's a
Yeah.
comic thing, yeah.
Okay.
Because you can tell he's sticking out his stomach, because
Yes.
Lee Marvin's skinny.
Yeah. I
But
was like, is this a thing that like
no,
that gunslingers wore, or is this a joke?
it's a joke, yeah. But it is funny when
Yes.
because Jackson is like his valet.
Yeah.
He's
He puts it on the ground so he can step into it and like shimmy it up and then he's lacing him up. The outfit though, fresh.
well, he said he had it in his valise, so which
Yeah.
like he says, go because I guess that's what he wore when he was
When he was
sober.
like the Kid
The Kid
Shalene.
Shalene,
He's
yeah.
got
So,
this sort of like black silky blouse
oh
and
yeah.
this like silvery like metallic like brocade vest.
Hmm.
He's got like a little like neckerchief like
Yeah, it looks
little
like silk though, doesn't it?
yeah, little like silk thing tied around his neck.
And the
And
big
like
fancy gun belt with a big buckle
yes. And he's got like the pearl, like the mother of pearl, like handle guns and like the fancy black pants and
and the
boots with
silver
the
toed boots,
yes, and like little spurs and
and
so
his
he's
hair's all coiffed.
yes.
Like curls and ringlets and stuff. And his
Mm-hmm.
hair, I even wrote like the whole, it's all black and silver, including his hair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's looking
Because
like fresh to death.
he does, yeah. And he's got the hat. That's the crowning,
Mm-hmm.
the,
Of course, of
yeah.
course. So yeah, he looks much more put together. So, anyways, he goes to this like brothel
Hmm.
where there's a lady singing with Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole's playing piano, and there's a lady singing with him. Um, and he goes in, and it's funny. He goes upstairs, and he's looking for someone. Obviously, we know
Well, he's
he's
looking
looking for
for
he's looking for
Tim.
Strawn. Yeah, Tim Strawn. But he doesn't know where he is, so he's just opening all the doors. And mind you, this is a brothel, so like opens the door, woman screams. Opens the door, woman screams. Opens the door, much deeper scream.
More like a man.
Yes. And then finally he gets to the one with Strawn in it, and we see Strawn from the back this time because he doesn't have his nose cover on.
Yeah, because it's sitting
So
on a dresser or something.
yeah. So he's sitting there like smoking, and he knows Shalene too, and he's asking what he wants, and
You wonder if the smoke's coming out of the hole in his face where his nose used to be.
I didn't think about that.
Sorry, I was just thinking, you know what I mean? It's like
Could be. Yeah.
because if his nose was bitten off, there's like a hole there, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, I guess if he closes his mouth, like when people blow
right,
smoke out of their nose, it's just like
yeah,
coming like straight. He looks like
straight
Red
out.
Skull, kind
It's
of.
like well, exactly like a dragon.
Yeah. I don't remember how the conversation goes, but essentially, Kid Shalene turns like he's gonna leave. And as he does that, that is when Strawn tries to shoot him because he only shoots people when their back is turned, apparently. But Shalene knew that was coming, so he whips around, bang, kills him. And he goes back and to hole in the wall and is like reminiscing about this and telling them. And turns out he knew Strawn very well because that's his brother. And they were like, "What?"
Yeah, they said you knew each other as kids. He goes, he was my brother.
And they were like, "What?" Cat's like, "You just shot your brother?"
And he's like, oh, and it was grand. It was great. It was better than I even thought it would be. You know,
Yeah.
and and he goes on about how he was always afraid of dying in a gutter with a belly full of bad booze.
Hmm.
And then he
And
got
now,
redemption.
yeah. So, and that kind of leads to the next conversation. So they learn that Harry Percival, who's like head of this development thing in Wolf City, and a bunch of goons are coming into town, and Clay is like, "Cat, we need to get you out of here." Because, they know that their train was robbed. Like, they're going to
And
find us.
right. This is also one of my favorite lines where he says, "Oh, he goes, they got all these guys coming to come and get us," and Kid Shalene says, "No, wait a minute, are they professionals or are they barroom sweeps or whatever?" And he goes, "Poles from Chicago, coal miners from Pennsylvania." He goes, "They're hard, so hard you could roller skate on them." So,
I've
uh,
heard that somewhere else too.
yeah, there's it's and I can't think of where it is, but this is the first time that I remember hearing it in this movie.
Yeah.
But
But I
where
feel
it's
like it was in another movie.
movie, I think it was taken from this one because I think this
Yeah.
was the first
Like it was
reference.
in like Hunt for Red October, maybe.
Something, but
Or
it was
one of
like
the, it was in something we watched recently.
so hard you could roller skate on them.
Yeah. So, Cat Cat wants to confront them, and Shalene is on board. Her and Kid Shalene are like, "Let's go," because like you said,
Hmm.
he's like, "I thought I was gonna die in a gutter with a belly full of booze," and now he's like ready to sort of go out in a blaze of glory.
Right.
And she wants revenge, but she's like, "Well, I also don't want to die though."
Well, yeah, because he's like, kids thinks, that he's done everything he's ever wanted to do, including
Mhm.
killing Tim Strong. So if he goes out, he goes out. But like you said, she goes, well, wait a minute, I don't want to die right away. There's things I want to do. There's places I want to see.
Hmm. Yeah, and so she kind of leaves, and then it's interesting. This part, it's like, as we've discussed, like Clay loves Cat, and Cat also seems to love Clay, even though he's sort of rakish.
Oh, apt description for the time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
trying to be,
Or sex
timely.
maniac, as she said.
As she says, yes. It seems this is news to Kid Shalene. Like
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh, she like doesn't like me." Like, what?
She loves you.
And he's like, "Well, you need to marry her then." It's like, I guess he's like her dad now. Like,
Right. I was going to say now he's looking out for like, like his the Dutch uncle or whatever.
mhm. But while they're fighting, Kat takes matters into her own hands and she's riding away. And so she goes to see this Sir Harry Percival sort of posing as a prostitute.
Trixie.
And yeah. So eventually, though, she reveals who she is. She's
Could,
holding him at gunpoint.
I did
Yes.
right though. And maybe could this dress be any tighter? It looked like she was sewn into this dress, doesn't
That
it?
is true. You
Because
listen, she's like she's on a mission.
she has to shimmy the dress to sit down, sort of, like,
Hmm.
and she is kind of playing stupid, which I thought that this was funny too. Like her,
Yes.
you know, oh, she goes, I think it's more gorgeous than anything I've ever seen, like the whole thing. So, but anyway,
Hmm.
but I did write, can the dress get any tighter?
But eventually she pulls out her gun and she says, like, "I'm Cat Ballou. You all took my trying to take my dad's ranch." And she wants him to sign a confession that he had hired Strawn to kill her father. And if he doesn't sign it, she'll kill him. And he's like, "You're not going to kill me." well, there's a struggle. He kind of goes for the gun. That makes me think of Chicago. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
They both reach for the gun, um and he does end up getting killed. So that actually did happen here. And
Whether she intended to or not, yeah,
yeah,
he ends up dead.
she should hire Billy Flynn. Um and then back to sort of where we started. She's about to be hung for that crime. And in her jail cell, she is looking very dolled up for her hanging.
He's got like this real pretty dress on.
She's
It's
got like
like,
a white dress on, her hair's done, like
yeah, her makeup's done. And the
she looks
dress has
lovely.
little bows. Yeah, no, she looks really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, well, hey, if you're gonna go,
Yeah,
go in style. So,
indeed. She looks like she could be like going to her wedding, but she's going to her hanging.
hmm.
Like the sheriff comes by to talk to her, and then a preacher comes in. And who is this preacher but Uncle Jed?
Hallelujah, sinners! I'm here
Yes.
to what he's got this banter where he talks about like he's there to help the sinners repent and
Mm,
bring comfort or whatever. But he's yeah, except this time he's not drunk.
yes. He is very sober. Now, who is drunk, who is back on the bottle, is the kid Shalene. Because he's nearby. He and Jackson are stationed kind of around the corner. The kid Shalene is on his horse, sitting atop his horse, but like passed out. Because he's like leaning against the wall. Like
And
they're on
so
the
is the
outside.
horse.
Yeah.
If you look, this is another part that made me laugh out loud because it looks like the horse is drunk. So it's like, because they're both like leaning, supporting, being supported by this wall.
Yeah.
That was whoever did that, whoever taught the horse to do that. That was great. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's time for her to be hung. And the preacher gets to go with her, right? For like last
mhm.
words, last rites, or whatever. I forget what they say, what she said. I think she says, like, let's get this over with.
Let's get this over with. Because
Yeah, like,
the
what are your
sheriff
last
says,
words?
yeah, do you have any last words? And there because Clay's like looking over, like or Jed rather is just
Hmm.
looking around, like he's not going to do anything,
Hmm.
and I guess she's like, oh God, I guess I am going to get
Yeah.
hung.
Let's get it over with then. But just as they're kind of about to do it, when they're opening the trap doors below her and like getting ready to kind of pull the thing to hang her, Jed cuts the rope. So she drops down
Into Clay's
into the
arms.
trap door into Clay's arms. And then they have, I guess the idea is that she
It's
would drop into like the carriage and then be rolled away immediately.
yeah, the
So
hearse.
the
Yeah,
hearse. So Jackson is driving the little hearse carriage. So they and Jed like hop in and they're like, Shalene, come on. And he kind of like startles awake and once again is the horse is galloping and he's like sort of half hanging off of it and they're just riding all around and he's like accidentally shooting things. They knock over some barrels and like the corks come out of the barrels and like signs are falling down, cars are crashing into each other. Like it's just it descends into complete like mayhem and pandemonium like immediately, which fortunately does allow for the hearse to get away very
I was,
easily.
I was going to say it ties up the posse, and where I guess the original plan was he was going to hold them off or go out
Yeah.
blazing or whatever. But yeah,
So, I mean, he kind of did hold him off, just not like
maybe
intentionally.
right the way that maybe it had originally been planned.
Yeah. But, you know, as they say, the best laid plans of mice and men. Uh, but it works out. The hearse is rolling away, and then eventually he catches up, and he's still like sort of like barely
Flopping on.
hanging on, flopping around on the horse. But he does catch up to them. But that last scene was very funny because it's just like
That's the where I just couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah.
So
It's almost like a Rube Goldberg machine, right? Like one of those little machines, like a marble knocks one thing over and that knocks this thing over and then that flies up and this thing rolls over there and a cork pops out of a barrel and it squirts liquid at something and then that catches on fire. It's just like
that's a yeah, it's a great analogy. You're right.
so
It's
many things were happening, but they all got away. And that is the end of Cat Ballou,
the Ballad of Cat Ballou.
the Ballad
So
of Cat Ballou.
the Queen of the Outlaws, as the guys sang at the end.
Yes,
Uh,
indeed. So,
now I can't keep the song out of the tune out of my head. I keep humming that,
yeah,
um,
it
dun,
was
dun, dun,
catchy.
dun, 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 dun. Anyway, so well, I'm
It's
glad you
a
liked the movie. I thought it was
yeah.
fun.
It was funny. Yeah, it was funny. But yeah, I was reading that it is based on I guess it borrows from a lot of classic westerns. As they said, especially Shane,
Oh
which I'm
yeah,
not familiar with.
oh it's on my list. So
As I
yeah,
said, this is I've watched like two westerns in my life.
that's
So
it. Yeah,
like
that's yeah.
my knowledge of westerns is very limited. So I guess it sort of like borrows from them and then is sort of like a slightly farcical version, I guess,
Yeah, oh yeah, because yeah, Shane's very serious, but
of
it's about
that.
the lone gunfighter, the
Yeah.
and the age of the gunfighter coming to an end, and so on and
Hmm.
so forth. So,
Yeah,
but
that
yeah,
makes sense. But I think it is, I can see that it is like a similar theme, right? Because then in like the Magnificent Seven, right? It's like a town needs help
hmm,
to protect them from some bad force, so they bring in these like outside fighters to
yeah,
help. So it is a sort
gunfighters,
of similar principle, right? Like
mm,
I need to protect my father from these people, so like
right? Bring in the
bring in bring in this gunfighter to protect us. It just so happens that in this one he happens to be a drunk
of
and
falling
totally
down,
wasted.
yeah,
A
a
truly falling down drunk.
drunk.
Honestly, like this is bad, but people in Baltimore will know. You know when you're outside by Lexington Market and the people around there, that's what he looked like.
Hmm.
Those people are not drunk, they're on other
No,
things.
yeah,
But the
but
people that are like fully bent over,
we
like
we
that's what he looked like.
we called it the lean.
Yes,
They
that's what
did.
he was doing.
They didn't fall down, but they were leaning so far over, but they, somehow still stayed on their
It could
feet.
be
But
called the Kid Shalene lean.
ooh, I like that. So
There you go.
there you
Because he
go.
was like, there were times when he was like standing
Oh,
up, but like bent over. I was like, how's he still standing up?
it would just even like there was one point where he was reaching for the whiskey bottle, and it was like he
Hmm.
could barely, get his hand around it without, because and you thought for sure he was going to fall over. Again, kudos to Lee Marvin for
Yeah. That
pulling
was
this
some
off.
physical comedy he
It
was doing.
was.
Also, I mean, just the fact, I don't know if he had a stunt person, but like, I guess whoever his
God, I
stunt
would
guy
hope
was,
so.
bless
Yeah,
him. Because
the
this man
rider.
was being, yeah, the stunt rider of this horse just being like jiggled around, like hanging off the side of this horse for multiple scenes,
Oh
just
yeah.
being thrashed around.
And then one of them, it was like riding one of those mechanical bulls. It would just the horse just
Hmm.
whirled around and stuff, and it would, it was.
Yes. They had to find a trick rider for that.
Oh, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was. Like I said, there's parts of it, and I still laugh. And I've seen this movie. I can't tell you how many times. So, um, so did
So
you want to talk about some of the other? Was there other politically incorrect parts
it
that?
it was mainly the Native American thing.
Yeah.
I think some of the like the come-ons from Clay to Cat, I was a little bit like, ah, but I guess it wasn't that bad. Like when he was hiding in her bed though,
Oh, I
I was like,
know.
oh my God, he was like under the pillow. So like for people who haven't seen it, his head is under the pillow. We see him like peek just to let us know that he's there, but you like cannot tell he's in the bed. So
No.
she climbs into the bed and he's just there. It's like, oh God.
And she's like this, yeah, like, prim and proper,
Hmm.
as Jed calls her, school marm,
Yeah. There is a line at some point when they're talking about going a hole in the wall. They're like, "There's not much work for a school teacher at hole in the
Yeah,
wall."
yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I think it was mainly the Indian thing. I was like, "Oh my God, not
I
this."
didn't because I kept thinking, who plays, Jackson? And then when I looked in the cast, I thought, no, that can't be who that is. I really thought it for a minute. I thought it was, like a real Native American. But
Yeah.
no,
That
no,
I when I saw him, I was like, that's not a
not a
skin color. That
skin.
color brown is not
No,
that's
not
not a
a
color
natural
people come
skin
in.
tone.
No.
I
That
mean,
is
this
not a
is,
natural shade.
and they had actors who could play. Come on, Jay Silverheels was, around. So was Ed Ames.
Yeah.
You know, who played Daniel Boone's sidekick in the Daniel
Yeah.
Boone TV
Or
show.
just like find somebody tan at least who's just like naturally tan. Get a
Yeah,
swarthy Italian. If he's a pale Italian, get a different one.
exactly. So
You get a nice Southern Italian. Give me a Sicilian, you know?
it's as bad as when they cast Tony Curtis as Ira Hayes.
Mm,
You don't know that one?
no.
Ira Hayes was one of the four Marines that raised the flag at Guadalcanal, who was also a Native American and died, unfortunately. He was an alcoholic, but
Mm,
they cast very sad story because that was his one moment, and then rather than make the most of it, it just sort of led to his eventual downfall. But yeah,
mm.
Tony Curtis played him in the movie, and then
I'm
that
looking at a picture of Ira Hayes and like I know what Tony Curtis looks like.
well,
And
and
like,
they did the same thing with his skin. They darkened him, to
guys,
try to make him look like a Native American. So,
jeezy crazy
uh huh.
guys. Um, well, anyways, that was my main politically incorrect gripe. That was
Well,
my
and
main
it,
like,
it was
oof.
a yeah a legitimate one.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, looking into this, it seems like this is a pretty well-loved movie. Obviously, it was nominated for 5 Oscars. So Lee Marvin won Best Actor, but it was also nominated for, it didn't win any others, but the other four was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, Film Editing, Original Score, and Best Original Song for The Ballad of Cat Ballou.
But
But yeah, so the other thing too, it was on the list of so the American Film Institute AFI has done like various top 10 lists, and this was number 10 on its list of the 10 greatest westerns of all time.
now, I did not know that, and maybe you know I should say this, or we should say this. I don't. I know Lindsay doesn't pick movies based on looking at the AFI's top one, whatever. I don't either. We pick movies that mean something to us. So
Yeah,
it just so happens that Lindsay and I have very good taste in movies. So just want to,
obviously.
yeah. So I'm just saying, because we picked them, and subsequently someone else has said, "Oh yeah, these are really good movies."
Hmm.
I think maybe doesn't say that, oh, that we're using that to pick our movies from. It's just
Yeah, this just happens
legitimizing
to,
our taste in our critique of movies. So,
yes. And on that note, there are some other people that I read for whom this was also a very important movie. So the Farrelly brothers, who are kind of have written a bunch of
oh,
comedies
uh-huh.
that people are familiar with. They did Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, Me, Myself, and Irene. There's something about Mary, The Ringer. They also did the movie Stuck on You. Lots of different like comedy movies of kind of the late 90s, early 2000s. They said that like this was like their favorite movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
And Bryan Cranston said that this was the movie that had the most impact on him when he was growing up.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's it.
So,
I mean, when you think about it, I mean, to me it was, funny and lighthearted and but I guess maybe to some other people, it maybe either motivated them or just,
yeah. I think you
played.
can see how like this would be inspirational for the Farrelly brothers.
Yeah, yeah, especially with like doing like ensemble comedies or
Hmm.
like sort of spoof things.
And I forgot in There's Something About Mary, they have like the balladeers. So they have people like singing.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So that's directly inspired by
Taken
this
from this,
movie.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. But yeah, so you're in good company, I
well,
guess to
you know,
say.
I would say that with both of our, you know, of all of our selections, I think if people look at our selections and then look at, you know, critiques or whatever of the movies from other people, I think that they'll see that it's not just us that like them, although, you know, we like them for different reasons. So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The other thing that I wrote down that I thought was interesting that I said, this is what I was talking about that we'll get to. So, as I mentioned, Jane Fonda went to Hanoi in 1972, and people in the United States were upset about her taking pictures with North Vietnamese because we were at war with them. So people advocated, said that she was committing treason, and
Mm.
some people advocated for her execution for
Ooh,
treason, and they took imagery like the picture of her from this movie with the noose around her neck
really?
to like put up, yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah. Um, so people would like take from that to be like
Mm-hmm.
hang,
Hang Jane
hang
Fonda.
Jane Fonda, hang Hanoi Jane, I guess,
Oh my gosh, I did
which I
not
thought
know
was
that.
interesting.
I mean, I
Yeah.
know there was a lot of backlash about her, you know, appearing about going there and stuff, but I didn't know it
Hmm.
went that far. So
Yeah, yeah. But I guess if there's a picture of her in a noose, that just works perfectly if you want to call for her to be hung. So,
that's terrible. So,
yeah, yeah. That seems awful. But yeah, she's still around.
oh yeah,
And she's still like regularly protesting and getting arrested.
nothing
So,
wrong. Well, look, if you believe, you believe. So
yeah.
if you follow your beliefs, she was also
Yeah.
married to Ted Turner for a while. For
Mm-hmm. She
uh,
just also, I think she won the Lifetime Achievement Award, I believe, at the SAG Awards this year.
is that what it was?
I believe so. And she gave a speech, about kind of, standing up for what you believe in and stuff, which, she talks the talk and she walks the walk.
Walks the walk.
So,
So, and then I know she won the Academy Award for Clute.
yes.
Did she also win for the China Syndrome?
She also won for Coming Home.
That's a
She was
that's
nominated for The China Syndrome, They Shoot
oh
Horses, Don't They, Julia, On Golden Pond, and The Morning After.
okay.
So yeah, she was nominated.
That's Coming Home is a very intense movie.
Mm. But yeah,
That
Jane Fonda, I mean, she's been acting for like 60 years.
oh yeah. So
So she's won 2 Academy Awards, 2 BAFTAs, 7 Golden Globes, and a Primetime Emmy Award. She's been nominated for a Grammy and she's won a Tony
really,
also.
she
Or
won a
she's been,
Tony.
hold on. Yeah,
What
Best
did she
at,
win?
or no, 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 no. She's been nominated for 2 Tonys. Apologies.
Oh, that's
Or
okay. But maybe still
There
to be
Was a
nom.
Little Girl and 33 Variations. They're both plays.
Those I don't know.
Yeah.
So
So
she was funny in 9 to 5.
Love Her in 9 to 5. That's on my list. So we're
And that's a good one. That's got a great ensemble cast. So so good. Well, I'm glad if you weren't you haven't watched a lot of westerns. I'm glad you watched this one, and I'm glad you know enjoyed it for the most part. So
yeah, I think it was fun.
yeah, you know now we see Lee Marvin in one of his lighter moments. So
Yeah.
because we will get to the Dirty Dozen, trust me.
Okay. Cool.
So but
That'll be fun. Well, yeah. So anything else you want to add about
no,
Cat Ballou?
like I said, it's not a very long movie. So, you know,
No?
if you want to sit down and like I said, just, you know, just laugh, you know, and have some fun. And it to me it was a good sit down with a bucket of popcorn and
Mm-hmm.
you know, sit there and catch all the little innuendos and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
And I think there is something fun about a Western, even outside of like the actual like goofy comedy, right? Like the outfits and like the gunslinger and like the music and people riding
yeah,
around on horses and like There
Yeah,
is something just kind of fun about that too.
there is, yeah, sort of, and then of course it's depicting our, probably I guess the most romantic period of our country, I
Yeah.
guess, the day of the cowboy or the way of the cowboy. So
Hmm.
yeah, so well, good. No, I hope if you haven't seen it, watch it. I think I watched it on Turner Classic Movies. I can't remember. I don't know if
Yeah. I
where
watched
you
it on some streaming thing for free.
see. So yeah,
So
so you get to see, and Jane Fonda, God bless her heart, she's still with us. So
yeah, she's still kicking and doing very well.
still,
Shout out
yeah,
to
yeah. Got to say,
cosmetic surgery.
I was just getting. I wasn't going to point. I wasn't going to cast any dispersion, but she still looks fabulous. So
Yes. I
yes,
think she's open about it. I think she's open about it.
and that's fine. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. And
Yeah.
she is very funny in
Hmm.
Frankie and
Grace and Frankie.
Grace and Frankie. So I've
Yeah.
seen a few episodes of that, and a friend of mine had
Hmm.
told me about that, about how funny that is. So, and
Yeah,
that's got a very good cast in it. But yeah,
for
she's.
sure. Reunited with Lily Tomlin. Yeah.
So, but
But yeah,
anyway.
she's 87.
Oh my God, I had no idea. Good for her.
Yeah. So she's out there kicking. So shout out to Jane Fonda. Oh my God, I always forget that her son is an actor and he's like, have you seen Barbershop?
Mhm.
He's like the white guy who thinks he's black. Is
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 he?
her son,
Is it really?
Troy Garrity? Yeah.
I did not know that.
I like have learned that and then every time I like come
It's like
across
a
that fact,
surprise.
I'm like, "Oh my God. This dude is Jane Fonda's son."
It's like learning it new all over again.
Yes. Yes,
That's funny.
exactly.
Yeah, because he is funny. Uh,
It so funny to me. Um anyways. Well, thank you for listening. Please be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this so you can get all of our episodes delivered right to you when we release them on Mondays. Please leave a rating, review, a comment, especially if it's nice, or else we might have to call Kid Shalene. Please follow us on Instagram at Some of Our Parts Pod. You can see all the movies that we've talked about. There's quite a variety. You can also see little previews of what's to come and whatever else we decide to share, including, for example, our last episode we talked about A League of Their Own, and I shared a picture of us in our A League of Their Own Halloween costumes. So we do a lot of pop culture related Halloween. So you never know when you're gonna see us in a fun costume. And with that, bye bye.
Take care.